Good afternoon. Welcome to second session of IPC Master Class Season 3, Occupational Safety. We have pleasure to have this session Professor Vijay Lakshmi Nag. She is the head of the department, All India Institute of Medical Science, Jodhpur. And to chair the sessions today, we have President of Infection Control Academy of India, Dr. Ranga Reddy. Before I hand over the session to Dr. Ranga Reddy to chair the session, a quick thing about the quiz. Last quiz is active, and you will be able to assess the quiz, take the quiz at sanmed.live/assess1. Similarly, after this session, you will be able to attend the quiz sanmed.liv/assess2. And the slide of previous session and this session will be available immediately after this session at sanmed.live/ppt. OS stands for occupational safety. It is very simple and easy to remember that. And we are very thankful to the sponsor, SanMed Healthcare. With this, let's start the session with topic introduction. I request Dr. Ranga Reddy, President, Infection Control Academy of India, to start the session, please.
So, good afternoon, colleagues. A very warm welcome to you all. I thank all the participants from all over the world. I understand today, again, we are going to have the people participating from Africa, Middle East, and also the Asia Pacific. To all of you, thank you very much for joining us. And as usual, today's session is going to be quite enlightening with practical aspects which are related to the occupational safety during COVID-19. Or the same thing can be applied in the future also. That is the very reason we have tried and brought those people who had been warriors and in the forefront of this COVID-19 pandemic fighting. I would not go into the introduction of the webinar series because we have talked in detail about the objectives of this series called Occupational Safety for Healthcare Workers during Pandemics. But I would like to say one thing before I start introducing today's speaker, that we all are having a wide range of hazards while delivering the care for our patients in our jobs. So while getting exposed to a complex variety of health and safety hazards, we need to be mindful about those hazards. And certainly as healthcare professionals, we need to address them. We need to take care of ourselves. Just a statistic which had been recently published that says that 61%, that is a very staggering number, of healthcare workers are reported to get exposed to workplace health hazards. And among them, about 81% are getting exposed to biological hazards. So that shows the risk what we are going through is very, very high, even without pandemics. During the pandemics, actually, the risk exponentially goes up. And in order to bridge the gap of that knowledge and understanding and to sensitize all the healthcare workers today who are in forefront, we have brought and we have thought from Infection Control Academy of India to humbly contribute to reducing such risk to pandemic warriors. Now, coming specifically to today's session, out of 4 webinars, last session you have heard Dr. Mamotra, who talked about hospital-based in-ward settings, ICU settings, and private settings. And today, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi Nag, she is a professor and head of the department microbiology, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Jodhpur, and she is going to share her experiences in the government settings. And, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi post her MD She has a 3 decade of experience in various capacities in various settings. She did her graduation and post-graduation microbiology from King George Medical University, Lucknow, where she later on went on to become a faculty. And she has initiated and she established the Department of Microbiology in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Jodhpur, where she is currently heading that department. I can go on, narrating all her varied experiences, but one thing definitely which I would like to mention before actually handing over the mic to her, that she had been given a Lifetime Achievement Award in Health and Medical Sciences for her contribution and achievement in the field of microbiology, that is called as Viva Awards 2019. She had varied publications both in national and also international journals. One notable point is recently she has delivered one lecture on assessing SARS-CoV-2 infection among healthcare workers and inpatients, which was organized by CDC, which you all know, which is a USA-based organization. So with that brief introduction of Dr. Vijayalakshmi Nag, now I would like to request her to take over and deliver this session. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Dangareddy. Thank you so much for providing this privilege for speaking on this dais. The recent population-based studies suggest that the infection rate of healthcare workers among all the diagnosed cases is between 10 to 20%. There is at least threefold increased risk in comparison to general community. Asian community health care workers, among some others, are particularly at high risk. Adequacy and reuse of PPE, that is the personal protective equipment, clinical setting, and ethnic background were important factors cited by the study. Data for healthcare workers are limited, especially in Southeast Asian countries, including India. In India, COVID services started with government sector undertaking that continue as the major healthcare giver sources till date. After the initial lockdown, slowly and steadily, the care has been distributed to private sectors. Hence, in the initial phases, the healthcare workers in government sectors face the burden of COVID-19 patients with limited knowledge and resources. Over a period of time, with improved healthcare conditions, infection in healthcare workers is supposed to be less. However, there is very limited data available on this aspect. I therefore wanted to discuss the status of COVID-19 among healthcare workers in government hospital in India, along with the factors related to them. This will be based on the experience from my birthplace in All India Institute of Medical Sciences in city Jodhpur in India. If the healthcare professional is playing a key role in managing the dreadful disease, microbiologists having important role in sample collection, testing, and confirming the COVID case, and thus helping in the prevention and management of COVID-19. Apart from these services, microbiologists have a significant role in control of hospital infection, biomedical waste management, training of medical and paramedical staff with respect to COVID-19 related hospital infection control practices and so on. I have privileged to be a part of the healthcare workers teams who are working day and night tirelessly with so much enthusiasm and dedication to curb this disease. So the learning objectives for this session are to understand and implement strategies for identification of staff exposed to COVID-19, to categorize the risk of staff exposed to the disease, to provide appropriate management and prevent exposure of staff at risk, and to emphasize the importance of implementation of strict infection control policies in the hospital. This WATS map showing data of 7 days extending from 3rd August to 9th August 2020. Only 3 countries, that is the United States of America, Brazil and India, are coming in the same zone and reported more than 1 lakh confirmed cases in 7 days. Out of the 6 WHO regions, Southeast Asia is one, which is the home of a quarter of the world's population. This table showing number of confirmed COVID-19 cases reported till 9th August 2020. India is at top by reporting more than 21.5 lakh laboratory confirmed cases and more than 43,000 deaths, followed by Bangladesh and Indonesia. This map on national portal showing statistics of India is on 10 August 2020. The total cases reported are more than 22 lakhs, of which more than 69% are recovered and mortality rate is around 2%. This is our institute, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Jodhpur. Our institute is situated in the heart of city of Jodhpur, a famous tourist destination that is rich in cultural heritage. The institute was established in 2012 as an autonomous institute under Government of India, which this also shows how the OPDs are crowded before pandemic, and these now OPDs are being changed into the COVID areas. The facilities, this institute has a 960 bedded hospital, out of which 420 beds have been designated for COVID-19, which are further identified as suspect bed, where cases are admitted after screening and before arrival of the test report. COVID positive beds for confirmed COVID positive cases, and according to the clinical condition of the cases, they are given the ICU beds also, like the COVID ICU beds 40 and HDU, high dependent units 40, and the SARI, severe acute respiratory infection ICU bed are 20. The institute was established in 2012. Now, this is the annual inpatient admission data before COVID 2019, which shows since its inception, the patient load has been steadily rising. Most of the countries had time for preparation of COVID-19, as the disease is first reported at end of December 2019 and pandemic declared in March 2020. Few of the countries had taken it seriously and started preparing to fight with this disease. Same is happened for the hospitals also. The few of the hospitals has strengthened their health capacities, but few were not very serious. In our institute also, different teams were made for various services which are taking care. All the teams are under supervision of directors, which include administrative control, engineering control, and procurement and facility of appropriate sources, preparation of institute SOP for COVID care, and the training of healthcare workers. All the cadre of the staff were trained for the infection prevention control practices, and then the laboratory was prepared for RT-PCR testing. The staff, only 1/3 of the staff was physically allowed to work in the hospital and 2/3 staff worked from the home. OPD were shut down and unnecessary patient visit to hospital was restricted. However, these services are now slowly being regained. Other services include Since the onset of the pandemic, ICMR has created a network of COVID-19 testing laboratories throughout the country. Our institute is one of the mentors for establishing and initiating the RT-PCR services are the laboratories in the state of Rajasthan and Gujarat. The institute is also busy with the capacity building of various medical colleges throughout the country. This is the COVID ward. The one full building has been divided into different facility for the COVID area. So this building of the institute is designated as COVID ward, which is separate from non-COVID area, and you can see that this is the total 420 COVID beds are distributed in this building at different floors. So non-COVID zone, these two stairs are the non-COVID zone, then the suspect ward, stable ward, SARI ICU and CC ward, critical care ICU and high dependent ICU. So these are the different services. This is the institute policy showing here, which contain everything. Means this policy is started with initial when the pandemic was declared. At this time, that time this SOP was made, but later on it has been changed into various versions. And this is the core committee, which is made up of the administrative control, nursing, public health officers, hospital infection control officers, medicine and pulmonary medicine in charge, then endocrine, microbiologists and ICU in charge. So core committee is the main core committee, which is under the supervision and guidance of the director, which take care of all the activities of the COVID services in the hospital. And this is the customized PP, which is developed by the institute for the future if there won't be any availability of the PPE. This is the social distancing area, where this OPD has been prepared in such a way, keeping all the things in the mind of the social distancing. How these are the sitting area for the OPD patients, which are at different spaces. These are made, the area are divided into different rows, so the patient can enter in the queue and have the distance maintenance, and that's why the social maintenance is there in this area also. The COVID testing, like in cases of if the COVID testing is positive, after what is happening, if the patient is entering in the OPD, he is first going to the flu desk, where he is being tested or screened, then the sample is being collected, and then the patient is shifted to the suspect ward. And till the report is arrived, the patient is being transferred on the dedicated trolley, dedicated corridor and dedicated lift is used for transfer of the COVID patient after arrival of the report. So these are the dedicated wards for the patient, dedicated beds for the one's individual patient, and the dedicated corridor and dedicated lift for transfer of the COVID positive patient. Then the laboratory is being strengthened. This is the COVID testing laboratory, where approximately more than 50,000 tests have been performed in last 5 months. So all the services were strengthened at the time when the COVID was started.
So this whole is on, and it is obvious to expect from all of us that the response would be in unison. And as expected, 100% people says that coronavirus be transmitted from person to person. So, madam, you can go ahead with the
Oh,
presentation.
thank you. But what is happening? These are the prerequisites. All the health care workers are not put for the duty. In our hospital, prior to posting any healthcare worker for COVID duty, the following points are ensured: that they are not having uncontrolled comorbidities like diabetes, any immunocompromised state, ongoing pregnancy, any community exposure, having influenza-like illness, and coming from high-risk zone. They undergo adequate training regarding the occupational safety, donning and doffing of the personal protective equipment, other infection control practices, and regularly update on current guidelines. They are instructed to report of any type of accidental exposure to the concerned authority as soon as possible without getting panic. This is the flu desk where the apart from this, like this is the healthcare worker which is showing before entry into the hospital for their duty. The proper care have been taken for fixation of their working hours also, and effort made to maintain good mental health, including the counseling if necessary. They have to install, and then these are allowed to enter inside for the duty. This is the daily routine, and there the pulse rate and oxygen saturation is also being measured, and this is the questionnaires which have been asked before entering. If any of these are yes, they have been. Any one is of the above 7 questions is a recommendation for testing for COVID-19. So if all these are absent, only no, then they are allowing for the duty. This is the way how the sample is being collected in the patient, whether this is in the hospital for the patient or in the healthcare worker. The laboratory technician who is going to collect the sample is in the proper PPE. This is the personal protective equipment, having the cap, having the mask, having the shield, the face shield, and this is the whole suit, and also this is the shield. And then these are the made by the hospital. This is where the individual healthcare worker or the laboratory technician can sit inside, and the patient will sit here, and the sample can collected by this way also. So either by the open atmosphere where the technician is in the full PP, or either sitting in the cabinet and taking the sample where this much PP is not required, only N95 mask and shield is required. This is the laboratory. Even if the healthcare worker or the technician or the scientist is working inside the laboratory, this is the RNA extraction lab, the BSL-2 lab, which is showing here also the proper care is being taken that the technician or the scientist should work in a proper PPE. So these are the BSL-2 lab. Now the flow of after appropriate screening, the healthcare worker are kept in suspect ward, and after getting the testing report, the COVID positives are shifted to COVID ward or ICU depending on their severity of illness, and negatives are kept in quarantine either at home or at institute designated centers. Now, how the healthcare worker can be exposed? The healthcare worker are always at risk of direct or indirect exposure in a hospital while performing different activities, like during the screening when the healthcare worker is screening any unknown patient, whether this is symptomatic or asymptomatic, during collection of the sample, during laboratory testing where he is dealing with the live virus, and patient during the transfer of the patient that is the transportation when the patient is being admitted, then during the care where the nursing staff is mostly more vulnerable, and then the hospital environment which is full of these type of the patient and so infected. The working screening of cases during sample collection is also very tedious, because in this case the person who is collecting the sample is very near to the positive patient. So in this way, if he has not taken the N95 mask or he has not taken the shield, then there are the chances of infection more in these cases. Then the need for identification of healthcare worker. Why there is requirement of identification of these healthcare workers who are exposed? Because mainly why these healthcare workers are being exposed and how this is requirement. These are exposed because either they are not following the recommendations of the infection control practices properly, or they are in the mental stress, or they are very fatigued, or they are having the long duration of the duties, so they are burnt out. So mostly the mistakes are due to few things which are either in their control, like the PPE, and which are not in control, like the psychological distress and fatigue. The first study, which is published by China on the exposure of staff working with the COVID-19. In this study, he has selected only 9 cases, 9 healthcare workers, including doctors and nurses, and posted in the hospital. And these doctors and nurses had no knowledge of the COVID-19 care. So they were what was the result of this study? The intensive work drained healthcare providers physically and emotionally. Healthcare providers showed their resilience and the spirit of professional dedication to overcome difficulties. And they were mainly limited up to, they were telling the healthcare workers, which were only 9 healthcare workers who were serving the whole hospital was drained because they were heavily posted for the duty. The long duty hours were there. They were in fear, but they were performing their duties. So this exposure of healthcare worker is reported by the China first time, but later on there are few other studies like Delhi has reported is the fight against the spread of coronavirus enters a critical phase. A large number of Delhi doctors, nurses, members of the ward staff and other healthcare workers have tested positive for COVID-19. And the report added that when other staff such as lab technicians, nursing, orderlies and the sanitation workers were included, the total number of healthcare professionals who were thus far tested COVID-19 positive crosses the 2,000 marks. Means this healthcare worker is not only the doctor and nurses, but these healthcare workers include the technician, the nursing orderlies and other staff present which are providing any type of the services in the hospital. So if we include the exposure data of all these, the exposure is very much high. And this is the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare Advisory for Managing Healthcare Worker in Hospital, and this is published on May 16. If we say the experience of exposure of staff at AIIMS Jodhpur, we will start explaining from the pandemic. So these are the timelines for our institute. Like the pandemic declared on 11th March 2020, and the testing in our lab started from 18th March 2020, and the first COVID positive came on 24th March 2020. The admission of first COVID positive case was on 24th March 2020. So this COVID positive case was admitted on March 24th, and the services were regularly started from 18th March, but the first healthcare worker COVID positive came on 11th May. So there is a difference. Because all the healthcare workers were trained in the hospital, so they were taking care. But initially the load was very less, and later on the loads increased about the hospital admission. This is the first case of COVID positive healthcare worker in the hospital. This is a known case of chronic kidney disease, came to the emergency on 1st May for hemodialysis. He was screened at flu desk and did not meet the criteria for COVID testing. Subsequently, he was admitted and underwent hemodialysis thrice. He improved and was discharged on 6th May. On 8th May, he was screened in the community under routine screening and turned out to be positive. While contact tracing, Chief Medical Health Officer initiated collecting the sample from all healthcare staff who were involved in this care during this admission at our hospital. It means this patient was not symptomatic and he was asymptomatic and discharging the virus. So out of 45 contacts, including the both primary and secondary contact, 2 healthcare staff, 1 doctor and 1 nurse were found to be positive. These were directly involved in this patient care. And this set alarm bells ringing in the hospital, and entire hospital was shocked and became more vigilant for infection control practices. So this was the first report of the exposure of the healthcare worker from the patient in the hospital. These are the recent reports. I am not discussing all the reports of the healthcare workers who were exposed in between, but few of the interesting are the nursing staff on COVID MICU duty. Nursing officer presented with ear pain and fever on 2nd August 2020. He was residing in quarantine facility arranged by the institute. I want to explain here because the healthcare worker doing their duties for 15 days and then they are quarantined for 15 days. So he was on the quarantine duty, quarantine off. He presented at flu screening days after he developed these complaints, that is the ear pain and the fever. The sample was collected and tested positive on 3rd August. On interview, he said that after asking what you are thinking that the source of infection in you, whether any patient or you were doing the duty or you have got it from any other place. So he was telling that there was the breach during the docking, means anxiety and hurry among the staff for docking after the duty hours. That is the overcrowding. What is the strict instructions are that the docking should be done individually by single, but they were hurried, and so even 7 to 8 healthcare workers were there during the docking. So this is the breach in the hospital infection control practices during the duty. Second, nursing officer posted at non-COVID area. So non-COVID areas are also at risk. Presented with fever and nasal congestion on 2nd August 2020. He had history of exposure to a patient of GI surgery 2 days back. The patient was asymptomatic, moving in the ward without mask even after repeated counseling. Later on, while screening before surgery, he tested positive. A hospital attendant posted in the same ward also became symptomatic. On 2nd August, both hospital tested positive on 3rd August. And so both staff tested positive on 3rd August. So here, probably the source of infection is the patient who was asymptomatic and he was moving in the ward even after the repeated counseling. So the breach in the here also the transmission either from the GI patient, or you can say the attendant and the other doctor, they are doing the services in the hospital, then they are going in the whatever who are posting in the non-COVID area, they are going to their house and they can bring the infection from the community also. And second possibility is breach in the infection prevention control practices, because they remove the mask and shield during the tea break. So no mask as per the history of the nursing officer. This is the third, the nursing officer on quarantine off duty. They posted in COVID ward and was on off duty for quarantine from 20th July to 4th August. On 26th July, his wife came from Puducherry. On 30th July, the nursing officer developed fever, and on 31st July, his wife became symptomatic. Both were tested positive on 1st August. So now you can think here, either the infection came from his wife or he has given the infection to his wife. So any prediction may be there, because he was already on quarantine, so he was not infected. So most probably in this case, the infection brought from the Puducherry by his wife, or not Puducherry, from the way. And so the community acquired infection is there. Now this is the doctor on non-COVID emergency duty. He took round with his junior resident in the ward for around 30 minutes on 31st August. Senior resident also examined a patient on the same day. Patient presented with pain abdomen who later tested positive for COVID-19. Both senior resident and junior resident presented with mild fever and tested positive on 6th August. So in this case, the either transmission is from the patient or the transmission between resident, senior resident and the junior resident. So the proper care, strict infection control practices and the precautions are mandatory to serve in the hospital.
So basically this is a reaffirmation that nobody is immune to. This question looks very simple, but in practice, we know what's happening. Just we have saw that, right? So this is a reaffirmation, and as expected, everybody says that healthcare workers at risk from novel coronavirus. Madam, you can go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So this is the WHO risk assessment management proforma, which have been followed here, and this is not exactly using, but there are some modifications have been done in this form, and apart from this form, there are other instructions to the exposed healthcare worker. For the exposed healthcare worker, a board has been constituted to our director for daily screening and assessment of risk exposure of healthcare worker. Any case of healthcare worker found to be a COVID suspect is reported to the nodal officer. In case of inpatient, even the patients are instructed to inform the clinician regarding development of any new signs and symptoms. So not only for the healthcare worker, but this proforma is not being used for the patients. This is only for the healthcare worker. The concerned clinician in charge, doctor, daily assess for the COVID and report accordingly to the nodal officer. The nodal officer then takes further action regarding evaluation, arrangement for COVID testing, and subsequent designation for admission, and quarantine of suspected healthcare worker and report to public health also. So this proforma is a very detailed proforma, which is not only there are so many pages in the proforma. This proforma is mainly based upon the different IPC practices, infection control prevention practices, which should be followed by the healthcare worker and if they are not following, then there are different reading of these in this format. So if all the healthcare workers must report every exposure to, all healthcare workers are being informed and they are instructed that they should report their exposure even in any form, whether they are symptomatic or asymptomatic. If they have any breach even and they have any type of the exposure, they should report to the HOD or to the concerned nodal officer immediately. And the nodal officer get the exact detail of exposure on that form, and then they categorize, or we categorize the healthcare worker exposure in the different category based on the WHO Proforma. So they are divided into two groups, that is the high risk exposure and the low risk exposure. High risk exposure are healthcare workers or other persons which are providing care to the COVID-19 cases. These also include the lab workers which are handling respiratory specimen from COVID-19 cases without recommended PPE or with possible breach of PPE. The strict guidelines are you have to wear proper PPE and mask and then to handle the COVID positive patient. But if the Proforma is having these type of the filling, then they are in the high risk group. Second are the performed aerosol generating procedure without appropriate PPE. And number third is the healthcare worker without mask, face shield and goggles. So having face-to-face contact with COVID-19 case with 1 meter for more than 15 minutes and having accidental exposure to body fluid. These all are the points which are mentioned in the WHO Proforma, and if these points are there, then the healthcare worker is divided into high risk group. If yes, point is that yes, then healthcare worker is divided into high risk exposure. For the low risk exposure, contact who do not meet criteria of high risk exposure, they are the low risk. And the management is based on the exposure, high risk and low risk. In cases of high risk contact, quarantine for 14 days, tested as per ICMR guidelines, and actively monitored for development of the symptoms and managed as per laid down protocol. If the test is positive, but the person or healthcare worker is remain asymptomatic, they will follow the protocol for very mild or the symptomatic cases, and no option for the home isolation. And there is an option for the home isolation, means these type where the healthcare worker after the exposure is asymptomatic, they can be kept in the home isolation if they having the proper facility. If they don't have the home isolation facility, then these cases the institute has their the quarantine facility and they can keep there. They are keeping there. Such cases and their home isolation are as per timelines. Then if the healthcare worker is symptomatic, then isolated immediately. These healthcare workers are immediately isolated and the following procedure is being followed. In case of mild symptoms, he or she can be still isolated and kept in the home isolation, like the healthcare worker is residing alone, but with some person who is looking after only from outside, then they can be kept in the home isolation. Moderate cases that require oxygen therapy managed at COVID ward, and severe cases are being managed at COVID ward in ICU. So in cases are mild and cases are very mild cases, they can be kept in the home quarantine or COVID care center according to the facilities, and the discharge of COVID-19 patient healthcare worker will be in accordance with the discharge policy of the government. Low risk contact shall continue to work. They will self-monitor their health for development of the symptoms, and
So this poll is on now. You can respond just below the slides video. There is options to respond it. Uh, can calcium hypochlorite be used instead of sodium hypochlorite in this infection of coronavirus? And we are getting the response. We'll wait for 10 seconds more so that everybody can respond. I see some people responding in the chat box. You can use the just below the video, you can see there is a response section where you can respond the poll. And this time we have a mixed response here. Very soon we'll announce the result. I'm going to end the poll and going to announce the result. And the result is that 85% people said no, 14% roughly people said yes. Madam, your comments, please.
Oh, this is the no, because this calcium hypochlorite is very oxidative. So this calcium hypochlorite is not being used for the disinfection for the corona cases. So mainly the sodium hypochlorite is being used, not the calcium hypochlorite. Thank you. This is this everybody knows that this is the Arogya Setu, and we also advise our quarantine staff, healthcare staff, that they should install this app and daily monitor their self and report to the doctor. These are the references of for my presentation, and at last some take-home messages are: the training of all staff before posting in COVID duty is very necessary, because if you are providing the resources, or the hospital is providing the resources of the personal protective equipment, and the person or the healthcare worker is not knowing how to do the donning and doffing, then there is how to use the mask and how to use the other things. There is no use of providing the resources. Number second, the stress to follow IPC practices strictly. Every hospital has their duty to stress upon the infection control practices. If infection control practices are very strong, these type of the happening or the exposure can be prevented. Number third, avoid undue stress and maintain mental health, because the healthcare workers who are doing or performing their duties, they are also in stress. Everybody fear, but they are performing their duty, or the healthcare workers are performing duty. So there should be arrangement for the stress management and also the counseling session, so they can, and they should be relieved. They should be given the proper time to take rest, and the mental health is to maintain their mental health is very important. Then the regular training for IPC practices and counseling. This is not that initially we have trained the staff and now they are working. The initially you have to train, then regularly you have to train, because these infection practices are very much important, and every time the staff is changing, so the every staff should get the proper training, and they, even if you are getting some other information about these practices, you should inform your staff immediately. This is the instruction for each and every hospital, and the counseling is very much necessary for the healthcare worker. Early recognition, isolation, and management of the staff exposed to COVID-19. Because if the early recognition is not being done, they may change into the severe form. So if they are not being isolated, they can transmit the infection to other healthcare workers. And then the management of the exposed staff is very much essential for their services. And this is our duty, to keep all our subordinate healthcare workers in the good mental and peace position. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. I think it was quite enlightening. There are so many practical tips which can be really useful, making our healthcare workers fight against COVID-19 very useful, at the same time safe. There are a lot of questions. I will try and segregate them. In the meantime, Mr. Pranav, do you want to play? You wanted to play something. In the meantime, I'll segregate the questions for Dr. Vijayalakshmi.
Yeah, I think yes. Meantime, we'll have a 90-second video just to want to play from a sponsor.
Thank you, Pranavji. Thank you very much for that. And ma'am, there are at least 20 questions, but
Yes.
let us see, if we can answer a few of them. The first question is from Dr. Srivalli. Should there be separate exit and entrance for doctors and nurses posted to COVID duty and a different entrance for rest of the staff?
This is not possible in every hospital. So there is, because the nursing are mostly inside the ward and they are mainly in the contact of the patient directly. So there may be the chances you can keep the exit and entry. Entry may be the same, but exit may be different because they are in more contact with the patient than the other staff. So there are the chances. If any hospital have this type of provision, they can keep, and the space should be there in the hospital also.
Yeah, that makes sense because not every hospital would be as elaborate and architecturally composed in such a way like All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Especially if you go to the secondary and tertiary hospitals, even in the biggest cities, they do not have that kind of facility. The second question is coming from Dr. Saurav. Ma'am, what is your experience of prophylactic HCT for healthcare workers? Is there any role of MMR vaccine?
Well, regarding the HCT, I would not go into this part because this is not my duty. I am the microbiologist and will take the care of microbiology only. And second, about the MMR vaccination. So measles, mumps, rubella vaccination can be given, but there is no study at all which is showing the role of MMR in my knowledge, not telling the broad experience of such. So in my knowledge, I don't have any experience of the MMR vaccine along with the COVID cases.
Dr. Saurav, in this regard, probably you can actually access ICMR guidelines. I think as far as healthcare workers are concerned, I think there is a clear guideline on prophylactic usage of HCT. Ma'am, next question.
The MMR vaccine are given to mainly the healthcare worker, but not related to COVID. They are given to the healthcare worker before entering in the few of the areas, but not mainly related to the COVID-19. Yes.
Yeah, the next question is from Vidya Raj. Kindly highlight on maintenance of air quality systems such as use of air conditioning, etc. in COVID wards.
So what we have done that there was no air conditioning in our hospital in the COVID ward area. So the AC vent were closed because they can also be the source of the another COVID, source of the infection to other patients, and so either you should maintain it very clearly because we have the centralized AC, so central AC was closed properly. And if you want to keep really, then you should keep the single unit, and that should be maintained with the exhaust, not only the AC should be in the one direction and the exhaust in another direction, so there should be a negative pressure. So better if there is no very hot area, like the Jodhpur is a very hot area in the initial period also, like during the April, during the March. So then also we had closed the AC, and this time the AC should be avoided, but if really want to keep, you should keep it in the negative pressure.
Thank you, ma'am. Next one is coming from Shyamapada Mandal. Please explain the capabilities of different types of face masks currently being used for protection against COVID-19.
There are so many type of face masks, like the surgical mask, like the triple layer mask, like the N95 mask, KN95 mask, the mask with respirator. There are so many things are used. But like the surgical mask, we are in the routine practice. If we are going outside, if the person is moving outside, they are lightly using the surgical mask. The second is about the in few of the area, the triple mask have been provided. The N95 and KN95 are the same. The KN95 from the China and N95. So these are the mainly masks which are used in the COVID area. The healthcare worker who are working with really in the COVID flu days are in the suspect ward, are in the COVID positive case, with the COVID positive cases, are in the ICU, are in the cases we are dealing with the aerosol generating procedures in the OTs, etc. But N95 outside the hospital, in the market area, in the home is not necessary, because this have another drawback of there is obstruction of the fresh air. So that N95 cannot wear for more hours. So this is another drawback.
As a continuation to the same question regarding the mask, Sherin is asking that some institutions are recommending to use 3-ply masks in COVID wards and N95 only for aerosol generating procedures. Is it a right practice? Is it that healthy and safe practice?
Actually, N95 is being tested, and they prevent 95% of the particles which are more than 0.3. So not about the triple layer mask. We cannot comment about the triple layer mask. Is so safe to work in the COVID area, because in COVID ward where both type of the patients are there, asymptomatic and symptomatic, they are coughing also. So in those areas, I think the N95 mask should be used. not the triple layer mask, because the efficiency of the N95 mask is definitely better than the triple layer mask.
One more question in regard to PPE, madam. Is full PPE required for maintenance staff, IT personnel, etc., who are working into the ward for some other work other than patient care?
If the person is going inside the COVID ward working for more than 15 minutes, he should wear the full PPE. This is advisable, and we are doing the same because he is exposed to that environment. So better if entering inside the area where the COVID patients are there, the environment is definitely, although the COVID patients are also having the mask, so there are chances are less, but better to avoid this, and to be the safe side, they should use the PPE. Like inside my laboratory, if somebody is going for any correction, anything, we are providing the PPE, and they are doing their work with this PPE only.
That's a very safe practice, but considering lack of PPE in some of institutions, they are trying to.
So in those cases, the PPE, there are so many options for these type of the situations where the PPEs are not there. In those cases, the PPE can be reused. Or second, only the shield and N95 mask is enough, and then advise the person to go and take bath and remove their cloth, because he is going to mix with the family members. So these are the strict things they can be followed, strict precautions.
Thank you, ma'am. One probably last question we will take, because we already overshot. One question which is coming from Dr. Saurav Maiti, and probably it is my question also, is how to differentiate healthcare acquired COVID-19 from community acquired?
Yes. In cases of, there are two sets, healthcare acquired and community acquired. I have shown you one case also. Like one doctor was doing the duty, and then he was on off quarantine. Then his wife came from the Pondicherry, and she infected the doctor. So if the person or healthcare worker or anybody going outside the hospital and residing in the community, there are chances of the community acquired infection, and there is no means, we cannot differentiate that this virus is coming from the hospital or from the outside community, because just like the bacteria, we can comment this is from the hospital and this is from the community. Is in this case virus, we cannot comment, but definitely by history and by their living status, we can say that you have acquired this virus from the hospital during any procedure, or you have acquired this from the community.
Yeah, as a continuation to that, he is asking in respect of legal responsibility of healthcare providers, because there is a difference between the healthcare acquired infection of COVID-19 or community acquired.
Definitely.
If the patient has caught the infection within the hospital, it becomes legally your responsibility to take care of the treatment and the costs related to that.
Definitely, there are the facilities are available and the supports are available for the healthcare worker, but not for the community acquired infections. So the proof of the infection from healthcare or community, if these type of the legal things happen, then this is the important things to keep in mind, that the analysis should be done properly, whether he has acquired this infection from the hospital or from the community acquired. So he can be benefited from the hospital if he has acquired from the hospital.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I think it's a wonderful session. I thoroughly enjoyed, and looking from all the commentary what we are getting, the people really got enlightened, and they got really enthused to go back very safely into their respective healthcare institutions. to fight with COVID-19. Excellent presentation. Thank you, ma'am, once again.
Thank you.
Over to you,
And
Pranav.
thank you, Dr. Thank you, Pranav-ji. I am really delighted to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the beautiful presentation. Two things I have to say here. I saw some of the questions coming from biosafety. So those who are interested, please see youtube.com/SanMed Healthcare. We had 5 sessions on biosafety. So very good session by 5 different speakers on biosafety. I think your query will be addressed in those video, which is already there in YouTube, youtube.com/SanMed Healthcare. Second thing, I saw the questions about the certificates. The certificates will be issued only on completion of the series, 4 webinar series. You need to attend at least 3, and you have to take the quiz. You have to attend the quiz. So join on 25th August definitely to get the same day certificates. And quiz things is given here, like you see there, sanmed.liv/assess1 for the previous one session, and today's session it is assess 2. Similarly, you can anticipate what will be the link for the next 2 sessions also. You have to attend this quiz session, then only you can earn your certificate. With this, we close this session, and we have the next session is a very important session again here, COVID laboratory. We have very senior, she is director of ICMR, National Institute of Cholera and Enteric Disease, Kolkata, Dr. Shanta Datta. Welcome all of you to again for the next Tuesday, same day, same time, Tuesday, 3 o'clock, 18th August. And this is the YouTube channel I was talking about. You can see not only the previous series, biosafety, but epidemiology session also. YouTube contains the recording of the session. So that's the good for all who have missed the earlier 2 series. You can have a look of on all the videos recording there.
Thank you all. See you again next Tuesday. Till then, stay safe and keep away from all the hazards. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.